This, gentlemen, as they say, is where the plot thickens.
Hi, I'm Tim. I write for television. These are some of my thoughts. Today we're talking about plot. What makes a good plot? What makes a bad plot? And to be clear, we're not talking about 3-act structure. 3-act structure is important, sure, but a lot of movies don't actually use the 3-act structure, but they still have a plot. Today we're going to be talking about something way more fundamental, and yet something that a lot of screenwriters still mess up. I want you to imagine a movie. In this movie, a man commutes to work. It's the same route he takes every day, he knows it well, takes him about an hour and a half, and when he arrives, the movie ends. I would say this movie's pretty boring. More importantly, it lacks a plot. But what is a plot? Things are certainly happening in the movie. He's choosing his route, he's stopping at stop signs. But is that a plot? Or is that just things happening? What's the distinction? Every plot is made up of two interconnected components. Interesting choices, meaningful consequences. For a story to have a plot, it needs both components. Interesting choices, meaningful consequences. The ideal plot should be able to be broken down to an interconnected chain of interesting decisions and meaningful consequences all the way to the last scene. Each scene on its own should be made up of interesting decisions and meaningful consequences. For something to have a great plot, the decisions need to be really interesting, and the consequences need to be extremely meaningful. Let's take each component and dissect it. How do you write an interesting decision? One option would be a surprising decision. This is the common tool of stories about very clever people. They make decisions that are so clever that the audience would never think of them, and so the decision is surprising. In The Bourne Identity, Jason Bourne is constantly hunted by assassins and police, and throughout the film he finds very clever ways of defeating the bad guys. In this scene, there are several hitmen on the stairs, and a dead hitman on the landing with him. How does Jason Bourne solve this situation? I'll pause the movie here, and you can try to guess what you would do. Would you ride the dead body like a flying carpet while you shoot the hitman mid-air and then use the body to cushion your fall? Be honest. This is a very surprising decision. Now let's look at the movie Taken. Here, Liam Neeson's daughter is, taken, and Liam Neeson has the kidnappers on the phone. He tells them that he has a certain set of skills, and he's going to kill them. This isn't a surprising decision, he's a CIA badass, but it's an unusual decision. It's not what we would do. We would call the cops. What makes this decision interesting is that it's completely outside of how most people interact with the world. It draws us in because it lets us imagine a world where we took control and solved things ourselves. And then we have consequences, the other side of the coin. For a movie to have a plot, the interesting decisions need to have some sort of payoff. Staying with Taken, the consequences of Liam Neeson's choices are, the rest of the movie. Every car chase and explosion, every betrayal and murder all stem from this one choice. This makes the movie satisfying because you feel like the main character has agency over the film. He is authoring his own story. Also, it's important that Liam Neeson finds his daughter in the end. His choice to solve it on his own is rewarded. The threats of death to his enemies are paid off in full. Meaningful consequences don't always have to be so grand and action-packed. Sometimes the consequence of a choice can be very emotional and personal. Zootopia is a furry buddy cop movie with a plot that mostly focuses on uncovering a grand conspiracy in the city. There's one scene towards the end where Officer Hops makes a public comment about how carnivores are dangerous, and this decision winds up hurting the feelings of her fox partner. Her statements don't lead to a crumbling of society, but they do erode her relationship with her friend, and that moves the plot forward. It's important that a plot include different kinds of consequences, some material, some emotional. Good plots keep these two components in constant flow. Each decision leads to a meaningful consequence, which causes a new decision, which leads to a new consequence. Like a pendulum, it swings back and forth. Each moment in the film is the natural result of the plot beat that preceded it. The Safdie brothers nailed this with the film Good Time, a movie where Robert Pattinson is in a hell of his own making, and every time he comes up with a clever idea to solve the problem, he simply jumps into a new, different kind of hell. To understand any narrative tool, I think it's important to see examples of failure. What is an unsatisfying plot? What does it look like? How is it made? First, we have the example of a plot that has interesting decisions but no meaningful consequences. I call this a Dylan plot. Dylan is the kind of boyfriend who makes promises he cannot back up. He's always got a great speech for the moment, but he's got no follow-through. For a Dylan plot, let's look at Star Wars: The Last Jedi. The film is filled with interesting decisions, but none of them amount to much. In the movie's most fascinating scene, Kylo Ren decides to turn on his boss, Snoke, and join forces with Rey. He ends their big fight scene by making Rey an offer. Abandon the whole light side, dark side dichotomy and join with him. This is a really interesting decision. It's a moment where the franchise is finally outgrowing its past, saying goodbye to simple stories of light versus dark, and embracing the complexities that come with growing up. Of course, Rey says no, goes back to her side, and the next scene with Kylo Ren, he's back to being Mr. Big Evil Guy, and it's like this beautiful moment between them never happened. You could cut the whole team-up sequence from the movie, and it would not affect the ending in the slightest. What about a movie with no interesting decisions, but lots of meaningful consequences? I call this kind of plot a Stephanie plot. Stephanie is the kind of girlfriend who says she hates drama, but it's all she wants to talk about. Everything is always happening to Stephanie, and yet she insists it's never her fault. Zack Snyder, when left to his own devices, can't help but write a Stephanie plot. He loves big, earth-shattering consequences, but no one ever makes any interesting choices. Batman vs. Superman is a great example of this. Here we have a story that should be filled with interesting decisions. What sort of choices would lead these two men to coming to blows? Instead, Batman's animosity is birthed not by a conscious decision Superman made, but a byproduct of his fight. And Superman's dislike of Batman comes from his general reputation. At no point do we see a character make a clear choice, and this choice leads to irreparable damage to the relationship. They don't even really make the choice to fight in the end. Superman is coerced when his mother is kidnapped, and Batman is manipulated by a bad dream, I guess? In the end, I can't help but wonder what kind of movie Zack Snyder could have made if the conflict between these characters had arisen from very clear choices that they made, motivated by very distinct worldviews. It probably would have looked a lot more like Captain America's Civil War. And last, we have plots that are bereft of both decisions and meaningful consequences. I call these Gary plots. Gary is the kind of boyfriend who is always posting about self-actualization on social media, and yet he's been stuck at the same dead-end job and hasn't decorated his apartment in mid-city for a decade. For the ultimate Gary plot, look no further than the Harry Potter series. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, I think it's the Sorcerer's Stone. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone? Philosopher's Stone? Which one is it? Harry Potter and the Sorcerer? It's both? It's both Harry Potter and the... Okay, it's both. Apparently it's both. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is a story about solving mysteries, and concludes with a series of magical tests. And yet, Harry never solves a single mystery, and his friends do all the tests. The final test, the one that Harry must face alone, is resolved without Harry having to make a single decision whatsoever. It's solved via magical skin condition. As for meaningful consequences, the series is almost pathological in how it avoids them. No character experiences meaningful change. Draco Malfoy is established as a cocky, mean-spirited 11-year-old, and despite everything that happens throughout the series, he grows up to be a cocky, mean-spirited 17-year-old. The students of House Slytherin are wicked and mean without exception, to the point where they are all thrown into a basement for the final conflict. There are a few moments where the series escapes from the Gary plot. In the Order of the Phoenix, Harry decides to form a club and start fighting back. But by the next film, he's abandoned this and gone back to being a reluctant witness to a story happening to other people. The final conflict of the whole series is the epitome of Gary plot. His victory over Voldemort in their final battle is not won through great strength or cleverness, but by virtue of having the correct wand. And once Voldemort is defeated, there is no moment where we see what great emotional cost this epic battle would have on a young boy. Instead, we learn that he named his kid Albus Severus Potter, the absolute height of non-committal. Now, I want to be clear, there are plenty of meaningful things that happen in the Harry Potter series. Characters die, there are sudden betrayals, and then double reverse betrayals, but a plot is not built on meaningful occurrences, but meaningful consequences. For example, Fred Weasley dies in the final battle of Hogwarts, but what decision is his death the consequence of? Was it a noble sacrifice? Was it because of a mistake his friends made? We'll never know. It happens off-screen. And like your boyfriend Gary, who is always posting about his personal growth without ever growing, the Harry Potter series tricks you into thinking it has a plot. Interconnected events unfold throughout the series. There are reveals and twists, and eventually the series navigates into totally new places, abandoning the school year format altogether. But if you watch closely, you will rarely ever find Harry making an interesting choice or facing a meaningful consequence of one of his choices. And despite all this, I don't hate the Harry Potter series. There is a reason these stories are a worldwide sensation despite how heinous their creator is. Plot is only one aspect of a story. For all the Harry Potter series lacks in plot, it makes up with setting. But that's a video for another day. In the meantime, be on the lookout while you're watching movies or working on stories of your own. If the plot feels off, but you don't know why, check. Are there interesting decisions and meaningful consequences? Do me a favor, write in the comments if you can think of any interesting decisions you recall seeing in movies. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.